Hrastelj of UNESCO Slovenia. Gašper.
Thank you. As Mark said, I'm Gašper from the Slovenian National Commission for UNESCO, and I would like to bring you a little nearer this organization out of this huge system of the United Nations, and to show you and to present that it's not dealing only with those matters what the acronym is standing for, but that it has very much to do also with sport. And in the end I would like to also present why I am here and what we are planning probably to develop, and in regards to future cooperation within the project My Sport is Franja. UNESCO stands for United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization. I will just briefly introduce the workload of this organization, as it's quite specific because it's among those seldom organizations and institutions among the whole system of the United Nations which is not concretely, it's not a funding organization. So UNESCO is not giving money for their member states, for its member states, for any kind of projects. Okay, there are specific programs and so on where there is some money also to receive, but it's an intellectual organization. It was, as all other specific institutions of the UN system, it was established after the Second World War, and the purpose of this organization was because it's in the mind of man that wars are developed. They say and they claim now that it's also in the mind of man that the constructions of peace have to be developed. So UNESCO stands for a really intellectual field of work, and that's what it makes a little specific in the whole entire system. Next slide, please. Sorry. Thank you. As I said, it's a specialized agency within the UN system, established after the Second World War. It was established in London, where approximately 16 or 17 countries or representatives of countries met, but the headquarters of UNESCO are now in Paris. And as I said, the organization is working in the fields of education, science and culture, but moreover, it has its workload also in the fields of what you know best, I think, in the field of world natural and cultural heritage, because that's the most known probably, but it's only a little field of work of this big organization. It's working in the field of information and communication. That means ICT in education especially, or access to education for all people, or the development of open education, which is a very popular and important field of future work of this organization. Then it's also the environment, gender issues, youth and sports, which I will show a little later. The Secretariat is quite big. It's this old mechanisms established after in 1945, so it's a big system with today around 2,000 employees, but after financial problems a few years ago, they have lost around 1,000. So it's demand now. Around 60 people are working worldwide in field offices. Governing bodies, only shortly, it's the General Conference bringing together all representatives of all member states. It's the Executive Board, that's somehow a government of the organization, having around 56 member states being there for 4 years, for example, and they are preparing the program and the budget of the organization and the Secretariat. Today, the organization has 195 member states. Slovenia itself joined this organization after the collapse of former Yugoslavia in 1992 as its 167th member state. At the peak of the organization, it was also a new specific movement as for the first time a woman was elected as a Director General, Irina Bokova of Bulgarian nationality, and she's presently having her second mandate and finalizing it because at present she's also a candidate for the post of Secretary General of the United Nations in New York. In general, UNESCO, as other UN agencies, is specifically dealing with underdeveloped or developing states. And so two priorities are always playing the biggest role, and this is Africa, the continent of Africa, and gender equality in general, and in all fields of its expertise. The goals of the organization is in general quality education, but not only quality education, it's in general education for all, so having the big goal that education should be reachable for every person in this world, every child and every also adult person in this world. The organization wishes to mobilize science and politics. They would like to address upcoming societal and ethical challenges, encourage and support cultural diversity, and of course construct inclusive knowledge societies. That's the main purpose of the organization. Just briefly, member states, and that's also the only institution of the UN system that it's working like that, are asked and they are supposed to establish national commissions for UNESCO. That's somehow a body between and working among the country, the member state, and the organization itself. So it's somehow a bridge between the organization and headquarters and the government, but not only the government of the member state, also the civil society and other areas of the society of the member states. Slovenia, as I said, is member since 1992. Our National Commission is composed out of 55 members. That's representatives from, for example, governmental institutions, from the civil society, from universities, from schools, and other institutions and fields of the Slovenian society. In the Secretariat, it's 4 of us working, and we have a budget of 200,000 euros, which is per year, which is not much, but it's possible to work with this money. The membership fee for us is around a little less than 300,000 euros. That always depends on the how large, how big the member state is, and how many inhabitants we have, and the standard of living. So, for example, the US is paying the most, and we are somewhere in the middle. We have 3 sites in Slovenia which are inscribed on the World Heritage List of UNESCO. It's 2 in the field of cultural heritage. That's the prehistoric pile dwellings in Ig. It's in the south of Ljubljana, in the former wetlands of Ljubljana. The second is the heritage of Mercury, together with the Spanish city of Almaden and Idria. It's around 70 or something kilometers to the west from here. And one inscribed site in the field of natural heritage, and that's the case from Škocjan, already from the year 1986. It's worth visiting them because they are, it's said that they are the biggest water canyon, not in the world, but at least in Europe. Some are in America, probably bigger, but this is somehow still a outstanding universal value which are shown by the caves. We are trying to work in all bodies that the organization is consisted of. So at present we are members of this executive board of UNESCO for the next and upcoming 3 or nearly 4 years. trying to express ourselves and to influence also the construction of the policies of the organization. So we have a word now there. We are including non-governmental organizations from the civil society. We are working very actively in the framework of UNESCO's intergovernmental and international scientific programs. Those acronyms stay for example, for the Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, the Hydrological Program, Geosciences, MAP stands for Man and the Biosphere, so in this field, and MOST is in the field of social and human sciences. Very actively, we have developed also the network of UNESCO associated schools. These are normal schools, and kindergartens on all levels, and they can join the network. We have around 19 schools in this network, and then they can decide for themselves if they wish to be active, so that they prepare projects which can be only for their school itself or among different schools, local-wide or nationwide, or also international projects, and it depends on the project, and they can receive also some money for that. UNESCO Youth Network, we have started to work a little more actively in the field of youth, so we have invited young people from school age, also then students, to join us, those who wish to work in the field of UNESCO's policies, and we have now a network of 200 young people from 10 years of age up to 30 years of age, and really doing something for us. We are sending them around also to international youth conferences, or sometimes we take them also with us to really formal conferences. Because we see the importance that it's necessary to include young people, because the future is standing on their shoulders. UNESCO Category 2 Center means it's an institution which already exists. So it's a governmental institution in Maribor, in the east of Slovenia, working in the field of information and publication systems, and because they are spreading their activities in the region, they were recognized then by the organization as a Category 2 center. That means they get some support from Paris, not financially, but they get support, and they are recognized and may carry the name. UNESCO Chairs is quite the same, scientific or university institution may decide itself to nominate a study program to be included in the network of UNESCO Chairs. They have to demonstrate that they would like to work in the framework of UNESCO's goals. So, for example, the study program of cosmology includes students, and they are giving some grants for students from Africa or from Asia. OER means Open Educational Resources. That's not specifically a study program, but it's an institution which is dealing with these modern resources, so virtual learning via the internet and so on, very actively, and they are working in this field. And then we have a new chair in the field of natural hazards and the way how to tackle them. It's only a small list of highlights. Last year it was the 70th anniversary of UNESCO after 70 years of its existence. Then this is a picture from two of our youth representatives together with the Director General of UNESCO, who visited Slovenia 3 years ago, and on the right it's the President of our Commission. Then one field that I didn't mention is, there's one scientific program in the field of geology, and as, for example, heritage sites, they can, in the field of geology, they can establish an area which is somehow specifically supported and also shown to local people and to tourists that it has to show some specific sites in the field of geology. The two chairs that I mentioned, the third is not on the list yet because it's very new. And now I would like to show you what the organization is doing in the field of sports, because already a few decades ago, 4 decades ago, the organization recognized that sport, not as such, but that sport plays a big role also in the field of establishing peace and also in the field of education. The Director General 2 years ago said that in every society, sport is a field of dreams and a force for fabulous positive change, and that we must do everything to harness this power. And I think that demonstrates that sport plays a big role also in the minds of the leading people of the organization. UNESCO is recognized as the UN leading organization and agency for physical education and sport. And the organization is giving assistance and guidance to member states and to governments, to non-governmental organizations, to sports institutions, to experts, and tries to realize a debate which is evolving challenges of physical education and sport in general. UNESCO assists and advises member states wishing to elaborate or probably also to enhance and strengthen their training systems and in physical education. And moreover, UNESCO offers also expertise with experts, not only working for them as such, but also from the outside in the field of, or in the framework of the design and implementation of development programs in the domain of sport. As to perform these tasks and goals which is given to the organization. The organization established and adopted a few instruments which are probably also known to you. It's first the International Charter of Physical Education, Physical Activity and Sport. It's an old, really rights-based reference document. It's from the 70s, and there are written in there universal principles such as gender equality, inclusivity, integrity, and sustainability in the domain of sport. Then it's the International Convention Against the Doping in Sport. It's a very important document because it's also it's a background document for the establishment of a list, for example, of substances of doping, which is a really standard and reference document which is produced every few years, and it plays a big role also in active sports. We believe that this international convention, because it was signed by most of the member states of UNESCO, and that it's a really, landmark standard in the field of sport, in ethics of sport and governance of sport. In the framework of the International Convention, UNESCO established the International Fund for the Elimination of Doping in Sport. That's one of the seldom projects of the organization where a member state can ask for some financial assistance. It's not a lot, but if you have a project and possibly Marathon Franja or some event in this framework, could also think about if you are preparing this event or so, and you show that you are making some really active demonstration against doping in sport, then you can make an application and ask for some financial assistance. If it's only nationally, then you get $20,000, $30,000. That's not a lot, but it's assistance as such. And if it's a regional project, then it can be up to $50,000, $60,000, or an international project, it could be $150,000. So it's not it's not so less money, and then Slovenia succeeded, I think, 3 or 4 times now to get some assistance out of this fund. Then it's the conference, that's the governmental level, the Conference of Ministers and Senior Officials responsible for physical education and sport. So every few years this conference is taking place, and it's a forum. It's a forum, I don't know, bringing together ministers and decision makers, policy makers, as to reach global consensus about sport policy issues and priorities in general. And last but not least, it's the Intergovernmental Committee for Physical Education and Sport. It's not an UNESCO body, but UNESCO was chosen as to play the secretariat for this committee. UNESCO provides, as I said, guidance, advisory services and assessments in related areas such as culture, social development, heritage, youth, for example, to promote and develop traditional sport and also games, if we say so. UNESCO's program in the field of sport focuses on these areas which are listed here. It's sport for peace and development. It's the recognition that the practice of sport is recognized as an instrument for promoting peace in societies, because it disregards geographical borders and social classes, or it should. And it also plays a significant role as a promoter of social integration and economic development in different geographical, cultural, and political contexts. We have some examples here. There are some projects which are supported by UNESCO. It's, for example, one is called Sport for Peace in Central American countries. Then we have schools of football for young children in Senegal and Africa, projects on HIV, AIDS, and sports. So they are really active in special projects in this field. Then we have the International Charter that I presented just a few seconds ago. Then we have the values of sport and what they mean for education. Because education in this century is increasingly recognizing the role of values and social skills, and because we have to tackle global challenges such as inactivity, obesity, unemployment, conflict in general, and then they are asking themselves, what are the values in sport? Because sport can teach values such as fairness, team building, equality, discipline, inclusion, and respect. Sport, I believe, has the power to provide a universal framework for learning values and contributes to the development of soft skills which are needed for a responsible and active citizenship of humankind. UNESCO has for that purpose joined forces with some international bodies in the field of sport, for example, with the International Council of Sports Science and Physical Education, the International Fair Play Committee, the International Olympic Committee, the International Paralympic Committee, and the World Anti-Doping Agency, as to develop these values, which I said, and because one really great project is coming to an end now, because with those institutions they have developed a toolkit for teachers, but for global wide, a sports toolkit for teachers, and it will be made available now, I think in 2 or 3 months after the summer period, and it's a great thing because it's working already in the field of heritage, bringing really those curricula and important topics into the educational systems of every country in the world. So I think it's a great thing also in the field of sport to do that. Then we have women in sport, because as I said, gender issues are one of the 2 priority areas of UNESCO, and I think gender issues in sport, they are highly unequal, I think, globally. Still, and I think still there exists a need to reduce the marginalization of women within the sports field, and it should be increased that their participation in sports programs should be enhanced. Gender dimension within sports policies still remain marginal topics and are tackled insufficiently, and that's why UNESCO puts its efforts also in this area. Anti-doping, I said, I talked about the anti-doping fund and also the convention in the field of anti-doping or against doping in sports. In this today, I mean, in this highly competitive environment in sports, athletes and athlete support also are under increasing pressure to do whatever it takes to win. And as a result, the use of performance-enhancing substances and methods in sports is becoming more important. This issue is not limited to elite athletes, but also to amateurs and to young people, and just for everybody. And I think doping is really jeopardizing the moral and ethical basis in sport and health of those who are involved in sport. As we have seen, UNESCO is actively involved in this field and plays a quite important role globally. A few pictures I have shown that UNESCO tries also to be visible in the field of sport. I mean, here we have the dress of Football Club Malaga, which plays in the first division in Spain. They have carried the acronym of UNESCO on their dresses. Just here before, okay, this not, but the second one. UNESCO is nominating also, in general, we call them goodwill ambassadors, known people, famous people who would like to put their efforts and expertise and their name for the good of the organization and for its goals. And the same they did in the field of sport, and as you see this list, there are up to today quite famous names on this list. The last one will be nominated in autumn this year. It's Mr. Stojko from Bulgaria. That's a sign that Ms. Bokova, Director General, is leaving the organization soon, so she's supporting the national people. But however, I mean, it's good that there are known people there, so that they who are recognized and known by the whole world. So that it's giving also the importance of the work of UNESCO in the field of sports. It's giving also a name and a picture. So that's in brief what this organization is doing in the field of sport. Also ourselves, we have seen the importance not only in general in the field of youth, but also our National Commission for UNESCO is trying to work actively in this field. As I said, we were 3 or 4 times with some projects successful in regards to the anti-doping fund. Then on the other hand, we have a really big flagship project which had its 4th anniversary today, this year. That's the so-called UNESCO Run for Youth, and it's the most massively attended project of our workload in the Commission. It's bringing, this year it brought together 2,200 young people, so that's, for Slovenia, it's quite a lot, running not for the purpose of winning, but for the purpose of sport and health and being together. For sure, young people are competing and they would like to win, but the winner is not getting a medal or something. Everyone gets something, and this event is taking place in the municipality of Ptuj. It's one of the oldest, or probably the oldest municipality in Slovenia, up in the east next to Maribor, and is now recognized already so we are visible with this project because the media is covering this very much, so we are coming with this project in the evening news at prime time. The run is attended by the President of the Republic, for example, and also famous Slovene athletes are attending, which is giving really big value for young people, especially, for example, this year our ski jumpers and Peter Prels, who won the last World Cup, he attended, and that's for the children. That's the big dream which was coming true, to run with him and to be with him in the same place, and also other athletes. So it's a really big project, and that's why we came together also with Summer and Rock and the whole Marathon Franja team, because we are considering how we could, and this project especially, My Sport is Franja, how we could come together and probably not only promote but develop this project in different fields. I have named only here sport and heritage, for example. Okay, Hospital Franja is not on UNESCO's list of World Heritage, probably unfortunately for some people. It's still, because there was a nomination made, an application made to put it on the list, but it's still on the so-called preliminary list of sites who could be possibly inscribed someday, but UNESCO is following policies which should not be in connection too much with the two world wars, so that's why there is some discussion against this, but it was recognized as European heritage now, and partly the marathon is going also through Idria, and we would like to see if we could next year, for example, do a specific event in connection of the marathon and the project and probably the World Heritage Site of Idria. And in the other level, it's also in the field of youth. So really, I'm looking forward to be part of this, and possibly we can extend this cooperation and to be here next year's academy in a more active role, and bring also people from not only from Slovenia but from UNESCO itself to this place. And we will for sure also the results of this academy and this project, we will for sure share this with our colleagues in Paris in the Secretariat, so that the name My Sport is Franja is also known to them, so that we can really enhance and make this as a probably someday a trademark which is known not only in this country and region but also a little internationally. So far from my side, I have listed here some websites only for your information and my email address. For sure, okay, I was taking a little more time than provided, but thank you for attention. I am open for any kind of questions, for sure. So if there would be something, then please. Thank you.
I can take it up. So thanks a lot for the presentation. It was very interesting, and I know that UNESCO did something about sport, but I didn't know it was so complex. Just two remarks, because you said that you are working with international organization and the International Olympic Committee and other institutions like this has the power to change the law, and so to permit a proper sport really for all, because just two remarks. One is about the inclusion of migrant and refugees. We know that now for Brazil there will be a fantastic team composed by all refugees, but this is for professional level. The problem is that at the grassroots, in many countries there are some barriers for the amateur level, and they are forbidden to play sport. So, and this is because there are specific laws, especially in FIFA. So if it's possible for you also to make some pressure on them and to think about in a wider way. And the second is on women. Gender question is so much important, of course, for me it is, but it's not only for promoting sport for women. In some country, finally, we've got many women active, but the real problem is the managerial level. If we see how many women are president of sport federation or in the International Olympic Committee, how many women sit in the bathroom room. So even if UNESCO can push this question, because they have the power to change at high level. Of course, we as sport grassroots organization could do some work, and we do a lot, I think, but we need also this kind of support. Otherwise, it's very difficult to change the rules for everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. I would just shortly comment on this, because you're right. I've heard about this team composing for Rio, but this Run for Youth, which I mentioned a few minutes ago, bringing together more than 2,000 children, Slovenian, but also some schools from Austria, from Germany, from Croatia attending, for example. And this year, because also Slovenia is affected by this refugee problem, and we received some refugees a few months ago, and among them there are also children, of course, and also children without parents living now here in Slovenia. And I said, because UNHCR, the High Commissioner for Refugees, has some representation here in Slovenia now, and I talked to them and I said, why not collecting these children and bringing them to our Run in Ptuj? And we did this, and there was, as you said, there was really a big problem, because I said first, wow, that's a good idea, and we are having them there, but then there were obstacles. For example, some people in this municipality in Ptuj, it's a small one, there are not living many people there, are against refugees, for example, and they said they would not like to see them in the streets. But that's one question. The other one was from the asylum home where the children are living in Ljubljana. They said it's probably dangerous for the children to come there, because the media is there, there will be a picture, they will be photographed, and they will be in social media and they said even that the IS could see that and could make some attacks or efforts to get them back or somehow. But in the end we succeeded. We had 22 or something children there, and that's one little step probably, and we already said we would probably also compose a football team, probably another project in this. And so that's the other question, and it's probably concerning both of your comments, is that, this is what UNESCO is producing. These are, as the whole UN system, those conventions and other documents, those are non-binding documents. But however, as I said, the Anti-Doping Convention is very important, and it has its influences. So you can always say, if something in your country is not happening after this convention, I can say, yeah, but your government did sign this convention. So it's possible to make some, I always say, low pressure on governments and also on other institutions. And as you have seen, UNESCO is the first UN agency which has a woman at its peak, and possibly she will also become Secretary General of the UN, the entire UN in New York. So she, of course, and also other people are for sure are going in this direction, and they are working on that. But it's taking